I cannot wait to introduce these two bright lights. So first of all, Hannah Hasan is a 2021 Hermitage Fellow and a highly sought-after spoken word poet and storyteller who believes that our stories can set us free. With themes that center on home, social and racial justice, women's rights, and more, Hannah is often commissioned to write and perform customized, powerful poetry and provide speeches and workshops for events, conferences, and meetings. She graduated from North Carolina A&T University with a Bachelor of Arts and from Full Sail University with a Master of Fine Arts. And the Emmy-nominated Scott Gardner received his BFA in cinematography from the North Carolina School of the Arts. He's worked on feature films, television documentary series screened at Sundance, Berlin Film Festivals. It's aired on National Geographic Channel, History Channel, Discovery Channel, ABC, on and on. His photographs are in both private and corporate collections, and he completed a residency at the McCall Center. He's the co-founder of a beautiful organization called About Face Charlotte, which is a nonprofit organization dedicated to elevating kindness and compassion through storytelling and community art projects. I cannot tell you what an honor it is to finally bring these folks up to the stage. Daybreak Legends here to speak to us on a trifecta of themes: invisible, free, and monumental. Please welcome to the CMCLT stage Hannah Hasan and Scott Gardner. Come on up. It's cool. I know.
I feel like we should have prepared a song now after seeing that.
We're good. To understand where we are now is to acknowledge where we once were. It is to remember the path that has led us to here. It is to look back so that we can always look forward.
Part 1, on making the invisible visible. I grew up in a family where art was a hobby and not an acceptable thing to do with one's life. And as I was very much sort of under my father's opinion of the world. So as a young man, when I thought about college and my future, I decided that I would be pre-med when I went off to college. But when I was in high school, my dad left. My parents were divorced, and that upended my whole world. Then he died like 2 years later. And on top of that, I wasn't speaking to him at the time. So I went through this meltdown period where I had to rethink my entire life. On the other side of the meltdown, I started to view the world for myself rather than what I was supposed to be for my parents. I got to start sort of taking on my own worldview rather than my father's. I was in college down in Florida at that point, taking all these pre-mid courses because that's what I was supposed to do. And I ended up taking a welded metal sculpture class just for fun. And I realized that I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. I would say to myself, I'm actually happy doing this. All of the pre-med sciencey type stuff wasn't where it was at for me. This creativity as a path was a door that was opening for me. And what was once invisible became visible as an option. Art, creativity, expressing myself. At first I went into sculpting, and that was really cool, but it sort of put me in this place where I felt like I was reaching a limited audience. I wanted to reach more people. And so I dropped out of college and applied to film school, and where I trained as a cinematographer at the North Carolina School of the Arts. After that, like many artists, I bounced around a bit. I moved to Los Angeles. I started an internet company with my brother. During the first internet boom, I don't know how many people remember that. So that was during the first internet boom. And we had this company we came up with called the Grow Network, which was this big sort of learning labyrinth thing that we wanted to create. And we ended up partnering with this sort of visionary titan, this guy from Memphis named Isaac Tigrit, who started the Hard Rock Cafe and the House of Blues. And he had a new venture that he was working on called the Spirit Channel, which was sort of an online sort of spirituality portal. And we ended up partnering with him. And it's sort of a long story that I won't get into, but one of the things that we did together was we went to India to webcast the World Festival of Sacred Music that the Dalai Lama puts on. And so that was my first time going to India. It was held that year in Bangalore, India, and I had never been before. And so I had to get my vaccinations up to date. So I went to see a travel doctor, and she told me I needed to take this malaria medication called Lariam. And I didn't know any better because I hadn't sort of traveled in that part of the world before, and so I took it. And the Valerian bottle comes with all these big, huge warning labels saying that it can make you go crazy and cause hallucinations. But it was the only thing available, and I wanted to go to India, so I took it. And so I flew into India, into Chennai, which is a big, huge, crazy city, riding in the taxi cab to the hotel in the middle of the night. People living on the street, monkeys everywhere, it's crazy, and I'm basically hallucinating and having a bad trip. So I end up in the hotel room, and I can't sleep because I'm scared cobras are gonna come in and get me, so I start putting towels around under all the doors. And so then I get up the next morning, and I have to catch a train to go to Bangalore, to make it to Bangalore. And I didn't realize that everybody uses the train in India, so you can't just like walk up and buy a ticket. And so I bought a ticket and just sat down in a seat, and then came to realize that I was supposed to be in standing room only all the way in the back, which is where I ended up, in the back, hallucinating with all the madness that goes on back there. But I finally made it to my destination. We're webcasting the festival, and I met another photographer there, a guy from Atlanta, and it's like, hey, let's go take pictures. And so we went out to have some picture-taking adventures, and we went to this landfill that a community was living in, a landfill that people had actually built little huts on. And we're walking through, and everyone has a mongoose or a cobra, and do you want to see the mongoose and the cobra fight? And like, one guy took a cobra out and put it on this 4-year-old's shoulders, and it reared up like, and I hate snakes. And so essentially it was like the most photogenic thing on the planet. And I would bring my camera up to take pictures, and I couldn't, like, I could only see myself, which at that point, I was very socially awkward, and all my artwork had been very abstract, and I just could see how cold and disconnected I was from the world and how messed up I was. And so I literally took no pictures in India while I was there for 2 weeks. And so I stopped. I stopped doing film, and I stopped doing everything. When I got back home, I moved to San Diego, and I essentially made myself invisible. I helped build a restaurant, refurbish a bakery there into a restaurant, and I lived on the construction site in a tent, and I painted paintings on the bakery pans just because I needed to do something. And I was just lost. I couldn't find myself. And then one day, my brother introduced me to this photographer in Los Angeles, a guy named Norman Seif. He's a super accomplished photographer who has taken photos of some of the most popular and interesting celebrities in the world. Steve Jobs, Tina Turner, Ray Charles, people like that. And he had this process while he was photographing these intense luminaries, these once-in-a-lifetime great minds and super talented people. He would interview them about their creative process and discern what made them great on a creative basis. And I was fortunate enough to meet him, and he took me in for a day. I talked to him about how I couldn't take pictures anymore and really how I couldn't do anything. And so he told me something that changed me. He said, there's 2 ways of creating art. You either do it from the love or for the love. And the greats, well, the greats do it for the love. They aren't looking for adulation or personal glory. They are creating from a wellspring of love, and they are sharing it. He also told me to go where my fears are, that would be where I would find my greatest gifts. And at that time, I was super socially awkward. I couldn't talk to people. I hated going to parties. I was terrified of talking to people. And I didn't open up in the way that some people do, and it just wasn't my thing. But I decided to make it my thing, to open up, to go towards my greatest fear and truly see people and let them see me.
Part 2, free to be me. I didn't know growing up that I was being raised to be a free black girl who would one day become a free black woman. It wasn't something that sat on me often. I didn't spend much or really any time thinking about it back then, but I do quite a bit now. Something that I didn't realize growing up then that I do realize now that my parents had to know was that if they were going to raise me and my 5 siblings, young, black Muslims with big mouths and big opinions in a town like Statesville, North Carolina, that they had to raise us with some element of freedom, of curiosity, of hunger, the desire to get up and make something out of this one life that we have all been gifted. I have this memory of my dad. Well, it's mostly of his voice. He was a Navy vet, and apparently there was this thing that they used to say when he was in the Navy that he would sometimes say to me. And anyone who knows me, I mean really, really knows me, knows that I am a sleeper, a top-tier sleeper. I enjoy a good long nap, a long good night of sleep and rest and relaxation. But there's something that gets in the way of that: prayer and fasting. You see, Muslims, we get up before the sun to pray one of our 5-time daily prayers. And during the month of Ramadan, we wake up even earlier to eat a small meal so that we can maintain ourselves as we fast through the day. And my daddy, he loved the month of Ramadan. He was so happy early in the morning. And he would stand at the bottom of the steps and make the beautiful Muslim call to prayer, the adhan. And one by one, my siblings would sleepily make their way down the steps, go to the kitchen table, grab a bowl of oatmeal, some cereal, whatever was being made that day. And I would stay upstairs in my bed, sleeping, because that little bit of extra sleep never hurt anyone. And my daddy, he would stand at the bottom of the steps with the biggest grin on his face and yell that thing that he had picked up in the Navy: "Hannah, Hannah, get up off of your knees, girl. Get up off of your knees, girl. Get up off of your knees, girl." And he would do it until I woke up. Finally, I would run downstairs and get my oatmeal and prepare for the day. I always loved art. Poetry, music, dance, film, I loved it all, but I didn't quite see myself inside of it until college. It was my first year at North Carolina A&T State University, and I had promised myself that college would be different for me. So though my parents were instilling all of the things in me and my siblings to speak up and be proud and be our best selves, I didn't have the confidence to be all of those things back in high school. So I would encourage other people to be those things. I would push them to the front. I would hand them the mic. But I knew that when I went to college, I was stepping into a new way of being. And one day, I saw an advertisement in my dorm for an open mic night. I decided that I would perform. I told my best friend at the time that I was going to share a poem, and she told me that she would sing a song. So now, we were both young black women, Muslim girls from Statesville, who were trying to sift through our process into becoming black Muslim women. So we both performed that night. She sang, I performed a poem. From there, my older sister, Khadijah, she encouraged us to start a group. There was an R&B and soul group that was out at the time called Flowetry. Some of you might have heard of them, right? And they did like spoken word and hip hop and R&B and fused it all together and made all of these really amazing hits. And so we decided to take a page out of their book and form essentially the Muslim Flowetry. With my sister as a manager and a director and producer, we started the process of writing the songs and poems and lyrics that told our stories as black Muslim women. And it really caught on in our community. We would borrow beats from songs that were already out and then like remix them and make our own music. For example, our first song called Muslim Woman was to the beat of This Is the Way We Ball by Texas rapper Little Flip. Some of you might have heard of him. And then there was one time where we were supposed to perform at the Islamic Convention for thousands of people. And we were up there on the stage, and the MC introduced us using the bio that we had submitted. Now, understand, we're no longer living in our small hometown of Statesville, North Carolina. So when we submitted our bio, we said we were from Greensboro. And we hit the stage, and the woman comes on the mic, and she says, "Get ready for," she says the name of our group, "all the way from Greensboro, North Carolina." And the crowd begins to clap. But somehow, the voice of my father was much louder than the roar of the crowd. As I stood on stage preparing to perform Muslim Woman to that little flip beat, all I could hear was my daddy yelling from somewhere back in the audience, "Those girls ain't from Greensboro, them girls is from Statesville." Statesville, not Greensboro, Statesville, North Carolina, those girls are from Statesville. And just like that, he reminded me of home, to stand in the truth of who I was, to always honor the places and people and communities that have raised me, lifted me up, that were essentially standing on that stage, standing on this stage with me. For being Black and free means that I take my people with me. If one of us can't go, none of us can go. My daddy reminded me of home. And from that point forward, all of my work, all that I might create, would be rooted in the very thing that has rooted me, home.
Part 3, doing something monumental. I have traveled the world and talked to many people and taken too many photos to count and documented hours and hours and hours of stories on film since I made the decision to go towards my fears.
And I have performed poetry on many a stage all throughout this city, this state, this country, have shared my stories and stories of countless others time and time and time again since I decided in college to give my voice a shot.
We have both built careers that have opened us up to ourselves and others, but not many projects, live shows, films, or anything else can compare to what we are creating together now.
I met Scott a couple of years ago at Charlie Elbertson's Kinship Summit. Not long before the world changed forever, and we found ourselves in the midst of a global pandemic. It was during the pandemic that Scott and I and other artists and creative people, just like many of you from across our city and the country, had to learn to embrace the pivot and take our work to the dreaded or beloved, depending on who you ask, Zoom. In 2020, Scott and I consulted on a couple of different projects that were all about kinship and creating space and opportunity for other artists and creatives. But in 2021, when we felt a little more comfortable with being in person, I got an email from Scott requesting a lunch meeting. He had an idea. I don't like "I have an idea" meetings. They rarely yield anything that sticks, and I don't like meetings. But I do like lunch. And somehow, Scott remembered my favorite restaurant, Ilios Noche. I'm sure I probably mentioned it in one of those fun Zoom icebreaker moments, but he remembered it. So I took the meeting because I needed to be in person with people, and I wanted the lunch.
I asked Hannah for lunch because I had an idea that was sparked by some of the work that I was doing on a documentary for a group of really amazing Black men in another city. That project really reinforced for me the beauty of the Black community. I knew that I was extremely lucky to have these men open up to me in this way, and that more people needed to have experiences like this. And I thought about home. I thought about Charlotte, the place that I call home, that is named after a Black queen. I wondered what it might be like to document the stories of Black women, maybe in honor to the queen that our city is named after, maybe as a way to give more visibility to their stories. There were many reasons that it needed to be done, but I knew that couldn't be done solely by me. I understood that that wasn't my call to make, and so I met up with Hannah, a Black woman who has the agency to tell these stories. At that lunch, I shared my idea with her, and her response,
I immediately said yes. And it's interesting to look back because I am careful with who I work with and who I create with. There has to be a vibe, synergy. And to be honest, I really like working with other Black people because we get us. And I don't mix words, and I won't shrink or play down my Blackness or any of the parts of my identity to make anyone feel comfortable. So I am cautious about who I work with. But this was an extension of my dream. I had just told my sister weeks before that my dream project was going to be in lifting and celebrating the stories of Black women in a monumental way. It would center us, our joy, our freedom, our excellence. It would erase the invisible. It would show us free, and it would be monumental.
From that meeting, I Am Queen Charlotte was born. It started out as just a book that would share stories of Black women from Charlotte through written story and photography. Hannah interviewed over 50 Black women who do life in Charlotte. We asked them to sit for special intimate photo shoots. From the interviews and photo shoots, we wrote their stories and documented their stories and bound those together in a book that will be used to hold our living history.
And it was clear that the book was not enough. So I took a few of the stories from the book and adapted them for the stage. And together, we tapped into relationships that we have with artists and arts organizations and community nonprofits and businesses and corporations and individuals who all understand the vision of bringing these stories to our community in a daring and impactful way. Queen Charlotte Week derived from that. With a great deal of ambition and determination, we planned a week of events, workshops, and programs that center the experiences of Black women in Charlotte and inspire our community to see their own humanity and place in this city through the stories. The week begins with a live stage production of I Am Queen Charlotte. The production includes stories shared by a cast of all Black women actresses. Live music and other performances are woven throughout. What started out as an idea and a book has become a collective celebration of Charlotte and the people who make this place home. It is a beautiful display of community and a snapshot into what happens when a community comes together to honor her history and define her legacy.
Yeah. In the 6 months or so that we've worked on this project, we've had so many unbelievable moments. Too many to try to capture and share within the small confines of this speech. We have seen our community show up in the most beautiful way. We have seen these powerful and purposeful and passionate women, and we have seen ourselves. It hasn't all been beautiful. I've seen my privilege pop up, those moments of insecurity or needing a little extra love or reassurance. I've seen my dad pop up, or my need to make him proud. Will this make him proud? Is this enough? Am I enough?
And I've seen my dad pop up. Yes, he gave me freedom, but he also gave me the thirst and desire for greatness, to make it happen by any means necessary. In the most beautiful way, this project has taken everything out of us. It is a labor of love. It's using my art to send a message, to change things, to challenge what has typically been celebrated or accepted, and there have been moments that I have wanted to run away from this. But I hear him. Hannah, get up off of your knees, girl. Get up off of your knees, girl. Get up off of your knees, girl. It's time to welcome a new day. It's time to welcome a new day.
And so here we are, less than 2 weeks away from Queen Charlotte Week, a week where countless invisible lines of connection will bond us all through the power of story, where we set our imagination free and give our community an opportunity to see what we can be when we embrace who we are. Less than 2 weeks away from showcasing some of the brightest lights from our city and sharing art that is monumental.
Invisible, free, and monumental. If ever I allowed myself to believe that I am invisible, not worthy of being seen, if ever I step into the belief that there is no power in existing in this beautiful state of being, free, open, ready to meet the world with my heart wide open, if ever I abandon the reality that I can wake up each day and be both ferocious and gentle, if ever I abandon the unique gifts that have been placed over my existence, I give up my ability to create a life that is monumental, to create a community that sees itself in the reflection of its neighbors, to build a home that builds a space for all, that is consistently seeking and working for greater. So I make my goals visible. I believe in the unmatched beauty of me. I give my gifts for the greater good around me, and in doing so, I gift others with the presence of free, with the audacity of greatness. Yes, this is a concept worth holding on to, an idea that is simple. Each one of us, our stories, our experiences, just as we are all monumental. And if you will repeat after me, I am not invisible.
I am not invisible.
My spirit is free.
My spirit is free.
My existence alone is monumental.
My existence alone is monumental.
There is power in my story.
There is power in my story.
And purpose in my dreams.
And purpose in my dreams.
And a little bit more, I am not invisible. My spirit is free.
My spirit is free.
My existence alone is monumental.
My existence alone is monumental.
There is power in my story.
There is power in my story.
There is purpose in my dreams.
There is purpose in my dreams.
And because we attacked 3 today and we believe in the power of 3, I want you to really take these words in as you speak this mantra. I am not invisible.
I am not invisible.
My spirit is free.
My spirit is free.
My existence alone is monumental.
My existence alone is monumental.
There is power in my story.
There is power in my story.
There is purpose in my dreams.
There is purpose in my dreams.
Thank you.
Well, I can tell you the experience from up here standing next to Hannah is quite intense and intimidating. We do have one thing that I wanted to share with y'all before we close. This project obviously is personally very important to both of us. It's also important in a lot of other ways. I think it's obviously a long overdue centering and celebration of these stories. It's going to be an incredible evening of entertainment. There's the performers. We have a Broadway director who's jetting out the next day to go direct a different show. We have the symphony, members of the symphony, Opera Carolina, and we have Lady Jess, who, if you don't know her, she's a Charlotte native, violin player, youth symphony alumni, School of the Arts alumni, who's gone on to be sort of a symphonic superstar, as well as performing with Beyonce and Kanye West and Jay-Z and Stevie Wonder and the Four Tops and Toni Morrison and
now us.
Yeah, and now us. So not only is the event itself going to be an extraordinary experience, but we're really trying to pack the house out. This is these stories deserve that level of honoring. And on another level, this is really sort of a pilot program for a lot of these new funding initiatives. We're doing partnerships with the organizations listed, Lending Tree, Blumenthal Performing Arts, where they are taking local artists like Hannah and myself and giving us the opportunity to create large work on the grandest stage in town. town. And so we need to show them that this works and that the community wants it. And so we invite you all to please buy tickets and attend, and to please advocate for the project over the next week. You know, tell your friends to come. Don't let them Netflix and chill. Make the effort to come out. We want the theater to be full to honor these stories and this work we're doing. I Am Queen CLT Insta and IamQueenCharlotte.org. Tickets also available on the Blumenthal website.
So I'm Queen Charlotte. The live show is March the 6th. So that's literally a week from Sunday. There's a week of community events and things that will be happening from March 6th through March 12th. All of that is on our website, IamQueenCharlotte.org. Literally, if you like Google any of it, or look for any of us, Scott, or well, more so me, because Scott's not on social media like that, but on social media, you can find everything you need to see. Please join us. Thank you.